Now, President Trump is in Arizona meeting with Border Patrol officials to talk border security, which is essential to our nation's well-being. Joining me now, the founder of the American Truth Project and Daily Ledger contributor, Barry Nussbaum. Barry, it's great to have you here. Barry, I'm so sick of this argument from the left that it is racist to enforce our immigration laws and that it is racist to build a border wall.
You know, the charge that was leveled against President Trump during the campaign is that the wall would be an apartheid wall like the apartheid wall in Israel. And the real sadness is the perversion of history, Stephanie. In South Africa, that wall was meant to keep people in, like the wall in Berlin was meant to keep people in. Almost every country in the world has a border wall or a fence or a combination, except the United States up till a few years ago on the southern border. I've been there into border places where there was literally a mark on the ground, and one side was the United States and the other side was Mexico, and there wasn't even a fence.
Yeah,
Literally no fence.
It's hard to believe. I used to live in Yuma, Arizona for a couple years when I was a local news reporter covering border issues. And yeah, there were many parts that weren't totally, completely covered. But Yuma, actually, there was a push to secure the border between U.S. and Mexico, which is exactly why Trump is visiting there. And he's the first president to visit there since 2007 when George W. Bush went to look at the project, which was, again, this push to secure our border. And obviously that worked in the Yuma sector. Now, for Trump, you know, we don't know exactly what the plan is when it comes to the border wall. There's a lot of speculation. You know, the left wants us to believe that it's going to be like the Great Wall of China. Well, that's not accurate. I think that we've heard that there's going to be more fence involved, like what we already have to cover the areas that are bare, more technology, more bodies at the border. And so these are the things that we're talking about.
You know, if we just copy the Israeli model, Stephanie, I think we'll be in great shape. Israel has a 400-mile border barrier that they are almost done with. 97% of it, Stephanie, is fence. There's only wall in 3%, and I would imagine the American design will be quite similar. When it's done, I would expect results like the Israelis have. They have a decline of 95 to 96% of terroristic attacks inside of Israel. And on the Gaza border, get this, 100% elimination of suicide bombers coming over the border. We Americans can expect a similar result in drops of crime from criminal illegals who previously, as you and I both know, could walk in repeatedly.
Yeah, and we heard Trump several times reference Israel's wall as a model of what we should be doing. And I heard also that Israel is working on a plan to secure under the ground, which is, you know, terrorists love to build tunnels to get through, which is also what drug traffickers like to do across the U.S.-Mexico border.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, if we just do what the Israelis do, we would be so much better off, and we would stop reading horrific reports of criminal illegals that have crossed the border a dozen times committing rape and mayhem, murder and drug dealing, and all kinds of gang violence. When we deport somebody, I want them to stay deported, and that's all the president is talking about. Let's be like all the other countries in the world where we have a definable border, and we defend that border with fence, wall, electronics, aerial supervision, and obviously boots on the ground. Anyone that's against that is for more crime and or wanting to register every illegal that comes across to vote for their candidate. And I think you have an idea of who is registering those people.
Well, Barry, we hear a lot of complaints about the expense, that it could cost billions and billions of dollars to build this wall. And I would say that that's money well spent if they do it, because imagine all of the resources and money and time you would be saving by preventing those criminals from coming into the country in the first place.
Yeah, I think it's a completely disingenuous argument that is advanced constantly, and yet we have all kinds of goofball projects that get pushed through by the local representatives to build bridges to nowhere and so on. Securing a nation's border is part of the primary responsibility of the national government going all the way back to the original Constitution and the intent of the founders. Anyone that's against a secure border is in favor of anarchy, more crime, more drugs, more violence, and, as I mentioned earlier, recruiting those people to vote for their candidates. And I think that's the secret mission behind the scenes. Let in as many people as they can get in here illegally, get them a path to citizenship, and sign them up to vote for their candidates. That, I think, is the stealth reason why so many people are against a border barrier. Let's not call it a wall. 97 or 95% of it is just a fence.
Yeah, I think you're right, Barry. And, you know, when I said criminals crossing the border, I mean that most criminals exploit open borders. That is, the drug traffickers, human traffickers. And it is a human rights issue because a lot of women and children are affected by this, you know, this call to illegal immigrants that you can cross the border and, you know, start a life here, get welfare, your kids can go to school, we'll pay for your health care, you know, we'll give you all these freebies, a driver's license. And so these people are risking their lives thinking that there's this open invitation to our country